Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Down the Rabbit Hole with KD. I am your host, Kay Dixon, and today's guest is very special to me. His name is Joe Collins, and if you don't know who he is, let me give you a little clip and show you exactly who Mr. Collins is.
Do you know where I'm not right now? Maxine Waters District. Yep, that's right. Maxine does not live in her district, but I do. I was born right here in South LA, in a place Maxine refuses to live. Maxine Waters does not drink our water. She does not breathe our air. And while she sits here in her mansion, our district is in ruins. Let me show you. This is South LA. I was born here. I grew up on 104th and Normandy. Maxine Waters has been in office for 44 years. Has anything got better around here? I can tell you firsthand that it hasn't. I survived a drive-by shooting in this house when I was a child. Gangs, drugs, violence, that was my upbringing. And where was Maxine Waters? Nowhere to be found. I survived Maxine's district. Graduated high school, went on to join the U.S. Navy. I fought for this country. But while I was fighting for this country, Maxine Waters could not be bothered to fight for her own district here in America. And when I returned from war, I came back to my community as a war zone. And why doesn't Maxine Waters want to live in her own district? Because she doesn't want to suffer the consequences of her own policies. South Los Angeles has been represented by Maxine Waters for 44 years. What has she done for this district? Just this year, deadly crime spiked 15% in South LA, much of it due to gang activity. The homicide rate in South LA has shot up by 53%. South LA has the highest poverty rate in the city, with a crippling 43% of its residents living below the poverty line. Meanwhile, in LA County has a homeless population of over 40,000 people. Homelessness rates has increased by 264% since 2009. Los Angeles is one of the largest hubs of sex trafficking of young girls and women. LA is in the top 10 least safest cities in America to raise a family. And our schools fail our children. In South LA, 29% of Black children never graduate high school. Look at this. How many little Latino and Black children has been abandoned by Maxine Waters? This is the reality for children every day in Maxine Waters' district. Maxine doesn't care about our district. She only cares about herself and using our tax dollars to buy mansions. When Maxine fails to lead, riots and violence surge in our streets. While our buildings and businesses burn, Maxine sits safe in her mansion, guarded by the same police she demonizes. Maxine has never had to deal with violence or riots in her neighborhood. That must be nice. But this is the way the rest of us lives. We need someone to represent us who lives here, who fights here, who wants to improve our way of life. Someone who understands we need safe streets and a strong economy. Our children should never have to grow up living in fear of being killed, like I did on this block. You send me to Washington, and I'll make sure our children never have to live in a war zone. Unlike Maxine Waters, I know the pain that crime, violence, gangs, homelessness does to our children. I was one of the kids left behind by Maxine Waters. I'm gonna fight for safety and dignity for South LA. The only question you need to ask is this. In the last 44 years, where has Maxine Waters been? Our people deserve better. My name is Joe Collins. I'm a veteran, I'm a patriot, and I actually care about our lives in LA. LA deserves better. Let's retire Maxine Waters to her mansion. I'm Joe Collins, and I'm the man to do it.
Yes. That is Joe Collins, ladies and gentlemen. He is on his way to becoming the next U.S. representative for California's 43rd Congressional District. Do you hear what I'm saying? I said California's 43rd Congressional District. And if you don't know whose district that is Maxine Waters' district. And he is coming not only for her title, but he is coming to sue her for some things that she has said about Mr. Collins. But I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to let Joe Collins tell you exactly who he is. Welcome, Mr. Collins. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I am so very good. I just want to thank you again for allowing me this opportunity to speak with you. I have been following you for some time now, and I'm so impressed with you and impressed with your politics and your policies. And so I just want to kind of let my viewers know exactly who you are, what you're doing in LA, and just the whole thing. So let's start with who Joe Collins is. Give me a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and let's just talk.
All right, good. I'll start with this. I'm from South Central Los Angeles, born and raised. Had to move to Texas, finish high school in Texas, right outside of Dallas, in a town called Ferris, because our house was shot up in a drive-by. And
Mm,
it's kind of getting involved in gang activities as I was younger, growing up in South LA, because it's a habit. It's something that you really can't escape.
mm-hmm,
Um, Joined the Navy 2004, served 13 and a half years in the U.S. Navy. I got out the Navy to actually get involved in politics. Um, I ran against Maxine Waters because when I got out the military, I was homeless, trying to get my VA benefits and everything taken care of. And, Auntie Maxine, whatever, she's supposed to fight for all Black people. I was going to her office almost every other day for about 3 months trying to get her to help with my benefits. And she didn't help me. And that, when you look at the homeless people across California, even like especially in California, the majority of them are Black, and they're
mm-hmm,
males, and they're veterans who are not getting the VA help. And I thought that, if Maxine treats me like this and she treats the rest of the veterans like this, shouldn't we be getting something better than what Maxine has been giving us for a long time? You look at the district, crime, poverty, extremely high. And I felt like, because I grew up in this district, I'm from here, born and raised, that I got to be the person to step up and run, since nobody else want to take our community serious.
mm-hmm. Okay, so what made you want to go to the military? Was that just because of your conditions, or was that something that you just always wanted to do? And why the Navy?
You want me to be honest with you, or you want me to lie to
Yeah,
you?
no, I don't want the Hollywood version. I want the real version.
All right, good. Because I gotta ask that question, because everybody is like, "Oh, it's patriotism and stuff like that," and it's like,
Oh
no,
no.
actually,
This
complete
this show
opposite.
is called Down the Rabbit Hole with Katie.
Yeah.
So let's go down that rabbit hole.
All right. So I graduated high school when I was 17, and I was going to college and working at Walmart at the same time. And a recruiter came into Walmart. She was extremely pretty. I remember her name is Angela Martinez. And I was trying to holler at the recruiter at 17 years old, and she was like 30 something. And we exchanged numbers, and then she texted me the next day and said, "Hey, why don't you come have lunch with me at the office and everything?" And I'm like, "Okay, cool." So I went to the office, and then next thing I know, I was at MEPS, and they were giving me a job, and they were telling me all the great things that I can do, all the great places I can go in the U.S. Navy. And I'm from the inner cities, and I'm like, that sounds really good to me. And
Hmm.
signed the contract, and then 2 months later, I was off to boot camp. And here's the kicker: I didn't tell my mom that I signed up to go to the military. She found out when a recruiter came to pick me up from home, and I'm gonna tell you, she was pissed off. She was mad.
Yeah,
Yeah, she
yeah.
was mad. She was like, "Where are
As
you
she
going?" I
should
was
have been.
like, "Yeah." But it was a great decision, all in all. So
Okay. And what was your job in the military? I'm asking because I was interested in going to the Navy at one time.
yeah.
Such a funny story. I was supposed to lose like 1 pound, and for some
Uh,
reason I could not lose the 1 pound. Anyway, I wanted to go into intelligence.
yeah.
I said if I was going to go to the military, I was going to do some exciting stuff. So what was your job in the military? And did that have any impact on you wanting to go into politics? Or did you just want to go into politics once you came home and saw the treatment of the Black homeless veterans in California?
Well, I had a lot of jobs in the military, and I'm gonna tell you, Intel was one of the more boring jobs. You'd have been upset. You probably would have got out after the first 4 years. But I started off as a jet engine mechanic. Worked on the F-18 Super Hornets. I worked on the E-6 Mercury, which is equivalent to a Boeing 707. I worked on the MH-60 Seahawk, which is a helicopter, a search and rescue helicopter. I worked on 18-wheelers, trucks, cars. I was a jet engine mechanic, but you know, in the military, you got to do all these type of things. I did a boots on the ground tour in Iraq, so I did a combat mission and recruited in Texas. We're at #1 recruiting station out of NRD Dallas, #2 in the nation, and yeah, those are my jobs.
Okay.
But what
So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say what inspired me to get involved in politics was recruiting. You go to all these events and you meet city council members and mayors, and they tell you how great you are. You should get involved because you care about the community by the work that you're doing as a recruiter. So the last 2 years I spent in the military, started getting actively involved in politics, and I know the military has this gray area to where you can't get involved in partisan political activities while in uniform, but outside of uniform, you can go volunteer for campaigns and do all type of stuff. And that's what I started to do. And I actually became a candidate while I was on active duty, which allowed me to get out the military with a administrative separation, journal under honorable conditions, and that's what shot my political career off. Seeing our conditions in the community is what made me run against Maxine Waters.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
Great. Um, Give me your plan. How do you plan? Because you're up against, I mean, this is Maxine Waters, like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I pray for your success because she's been in office for what, over 30 years.
Been like
Um,
that.
yeah, a very, very long time, which I really don't understand that part, like how can people in Congress and be in an office and position for so long. But it's the same way even with my representative here in Illinois. But you're up against a very powerful person and some very powerful principalities. Like naturally, you're up against a very powerful person, but
Yeah.
spiritually, there are some principalities, there are some places, and my thing is, how are you going to win this thing? What is your plan? What's your marketing strategy? How is Joe Collins going to defeat Auntie Maxine? I gotta know.
I can't tell you.
I gotta
I can't.
know.
I can't tell you. It's a secret.
Okay.
Because if I tell you,
Okay.
everybody gonna try to copy it. Everybody can't do
Everybody
it.
gonna try and get it. Okay,
Yeah.
I got you. I got you.
The crazy thing about it though is, look, I'm a Republican, right? And I'm in a heavy Democrat district. That's one of the biggest things. And so it's like a unicorn in a field of horses. Everybody want to see what the unicorn is gonna do. For us, our campaign has been extremely successful because we stay engaged. We're engaged with the community, and not when it comes to a political level. Everybody knows I'm a Republican, probably one of the few Black proud Republicans from South LA who are not afraid to say that I am a Republican. But
Right.
you know, we talk about issues from, you know, gang violence to creating jobs. We did a lot of food drives when COVID shut down. We did grants to churches that would take care of the communities from our campaign fund. I mean, we did a lot. We stay engaged. Even when, you know, George Floyd was killed, we went out there to the rallies. And a lot of people don't know that my campaign was the reason why those officers was charged in the manner that they should have been, you know, because they were going to let that guy off, but we went down
Oh
there.
yeah.
We had to speak to the mayor of Woodbury, to talk to the mayor of Minneapolis, to talk to the attorney general, just to tell them what the people wanted, because these guys weren't coming out to the city as most politicians never do. But even coming back to California and stopping the riots out here and working with the police department and the communities in tandem to create a positive atmosphere for the people who live in our community. So we stay actively involved and engaged, and people like it, you know. And a lot of people, we don't talk about politics. I try to make people understand that your political party preference is exactly what it is. It's a preference. It has absolutely nothing to do with the way you're gonna pay your bills. You know what I'm saying? Republicans are struggling just as much as Democrats and independents and any other third
Mhm.
party. So clearly there is no advantage to having one party over another. The only thing is the talking points. How is your person going to work for you? What are they going to do to improve your quality of life? And one thing that we're not seeing across the United States is a lot of people voting Democrat just out of traditions and customs without having that party or that person who's representing that party actually work to improve your quality of life.
Hmm. I was going to ask you that as well. Why the Republican Party? Like, why why the Republican Party? Why are you Republican? Were you always Republican? Did you uh, leave the Democratic Party and come to the Republican Party, or what? Why the Republican Party? Why are you
So,
a Republican?
I grew up in a Democrat house, right?
Mm-hmm.
My family never was involved in politics. They were just Democrats because that's what I guess they were told to be. Yeah, that's what they knew of. We didn't have Republicans coming into the inner city. When I
Mm-hmm.
joined the military and I turned 18, I was able to vote. And then my mentors was like, well, you vote for the person you feel like is gonna, work for you, the person who values align with yours, and you choose your party based off the values of that party. And so for me, you go research the parties and you look at the Republican Party. Black men predominantly started with the Republican Party. That's all I needed right there. Democratic Party, the party of slavery. They fought to keep slavery going. They created the KKK, started under the Democratic Party. Every single law that, if people want to talk about systemic racism or systematic racism or oppression was created under the Democrat Party. And till this day, they have done absolutely nothing to try to fix the circumstances or the situations that they put us in. And for me, I know this is, I use this type of terminology or this type of phrase to allow people to understand where I'm coming from with my ideologies. And I say this, and it's kind of vulgar, but it's going to make absolute sense. Um, if you were raped, or if a person was raped, and your rapist came back and said, "No, I've changed," would you associate with the rapist? And the answer
Right.
is every single time, absolutely not. So if you
Mm-hmm.
have a party that is responsible for the oppression of Black people, responsible for every single law that systemically attacks Black people and Black communities, a party who has for years killed our ancestors, why would you go back to that party? Because
Right.
clearly they didn't care about you then, they're not going to care about you now, and it's been proven over time. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, talk is cheap. You could tell me all day that the sky is blue, but unless I go outside and see the sky is blue myself, I'm not going to believe it. You can tell me you're going to give me $1 million, but until I see you transfer that money into my bank account, I don't believe it. So all the talk that I get from the Democrat Party is exactly what it is, talk. Because I mean, I can walk outside and gang violence in my community is up, sex trafficking is up, domestic violence is up, poverty is up, homelessness is up.
Mm-hmm.
Education system is extremely poor, and this is because we
Mm-hmm.
have Democrats that have been running South LA for 64 years and have done absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how what's the most effective way for you to get that message across to other Black people? Because what I've been seeing and what you consistently hear all the time is that oh, the Democratic Party, like you said, you were brought up in a Democratic home, and
Mhm.
9 out of 10 times, 9 out of 10 Black people are just taught vote blue no matter who.
Yeah,
Right? Like that's just
sure.
across the board. And to me, and I just started hearing that statement recently with this particular election. But literally when I was growing up, it was just when I asked, well, what's the difference between before the University of Google, what's the difference between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party? And it was always told to me that the Democrats were for Black people and the Republicans are for rich white people.
Yeah.
The Republicans are racist and Democrats are not. So, but in my research within this last year, obviously I found that to be very, very not true. So, how do you convey that? How do you convey that to other Black people and then get over the hurdles of this nonsense with the Democratic Party switching that whole thing? Like, how do
Yeah.
you break that down to people and get them to see that this is not what's happening and this really is not the party for you?
Yeah. I just don't spend a lot of time trying to educate people, to be honest with
You
you.
don't? You said you
Uh,
don't?
nah, I
Okay.
don't. And the reason why is because if people can't even see into their future, how they're going to pay their bills, what school they're going to go to, how they're going to live, and things like that. What's the point of going back to the past when you don't even understand the past? And so what we try to do is we try to make people understand like your current situation. Right now, people want
Right.
to debate me back and forth about history. I have no problem with letting them know that, that so-called switch had nothing to do with black people going here and white people going there. It was a switch about economics, because after the end of the slave trade, the Democrats were no longer making money off slavery, and the white people in the Democratic Party was getting upset. So they went over to the Republican Party because, they had that modern ingenuity to where you didn't have big government in your life. They were figuring out how to make money on their own through trade and barter systems and things of that nature. Even when it comes to the Civil Rights Bill, you can look at the Civil Rights Bill, and the Civil Rights Bill says that the Civil Rights Bill is not specifically for Black people. And what it did was it took the voice from the black people, and it collectively gave it to the unions and to Asians. It wasn't for Black people. And even when you have a president that says, "I'm gonna get these niggers to be voting Democrat for the next 200 years," that should be your sign right there that that bill was never meant for you.
Which president are we speaking of?
That's Lyndon B. Johnson.
Right. Okay. Go
Hmm.
ahead. Mm-hmm.
And so,
Who was the same president that implemented the welfare ordeal, correct?
well, he sped it up. He
Okay.
sped it up. Teddy Roosevelt started the welfare state after he got rid of the gold standard back in 1928 through 1933. Uh,
Okay.
so he sped up that welfare state and started separating Black people, the homes of Black people, started separating the men from the homes. And I think that President Clinton even furthered that effort by creating a Personal Work Responsibility Act, and which gave women incentives for removing a man from the home and putting them on the government. And then, in return, the government would give them food stamps or whatever the case may be, to
Mm-hmm.
weaken that nuclear family within the Black family. That's why you have a lot of men that are feminine right now, unfortunately, not having that man in the home, not having that male figure role model. So you have femininity and you have hyperaggression, which turns into gang members, and you have all this energy that has no
Yeah.
guidance, right? And you have a lot of young men getting killed and a lot of older men going to jail, and that
Mm-hmm.
because of that. And these issues have never been reversed. And you got to understand, President Biden was one of the hands who wrote the majority of these bills during the Clinton administration. The same guy who they put in office with his microaggressions, who said, "If you don't vote for me, you ain't Black." And he says that poor kids are just as smart and bright as
His
white
white
kids.
kids. Yes.
Hmm. The same person who
Mm-hmm.
said we don't want our communities turned into a racial jungle by allowing Black people to come here. Same person who said that I don't care how they grew up, I don't care what the problem is, these Black men are going to turn into super criminals or something, another that he said, and start ensuring that Black men were locked up. Then this vice president isn't no better, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I lived in LA for a little bit, and let me tell you, I never, I don't know these politicians personally to say, whether I like them or not, but as far as their policies are concerned, I've
Mm,
never jailed with Kamala Harris from the moment that I ever heard her name and started, like, literally researching and just, finding out, like, when you start taking things seriously in your life, like voting and just, you
uh-huh.
kind of want to figure out who's who and what's what. What I found so interesting is like what you were saying about President Biden, how all of these things that he said in the past, and now at the same time, this is the same person that you put into office. But when it
Hmm.
came to President Trump, right? I noticed how there were, like, everyone has a past. Everyone has said some things and has done some things that they're not proud of, that, could affect them later on down the line. But I just noticed how we, especially Black people, have had so much grace and mercy for Joe Biden. When he came out, that's when he said, you don't, if you don't know whether to vote for me or not, you ain't Black. That's when he literally lost me. Like, when I started listening to what he
Hmm.
was saying, his policies and things, I'm like, I don't know if I'm Black. If I don't vote for you, I'm not Black. Like, that was the most ignorant thing that I have ever heard any politician say on any level. And we, as a people, as a nation, and as a country, as a people, we allowed this man to say that and to get away with it, and still gave him our vote.
Hmm.
And I just find it so ironic and so interesting how we don't have the same grace for President Trump for the things that he said. Like, everybody wants to talk about the grabbing by the, whatever statement that he said in locker room talk with his buddy, talking about, situations that, kind of are not true, but, sort of kind of whatever, but nevertheless, it's locker room talk. But they continue to bring that up. But when it comes to Joe Biden, it's like, and even Kamala Harris, when she was running against him, when they were doing the whole the debates and things like that, she called him a racist herself. And so it's like, at what point did you all become friends and everything became cool and blah blah blah? But that's politics, I guess. Like,
I tell
I
you the
guess
kill part
that's,
about that story.
huh?
I tell you the kill part about that story. After she called him a
Yeah.
racist, Joe Biden's wife got on the phone and called Kamala Harris and told her to go F yourself. Like literally. And that it's been on the news, but it didn't make mainstream news
Of
as,
course
President Trump
not.
saying, and I think the hypocrisy from people, it never ceases to amaze me because I hear guys talk about it all the time. You know what I'm saying? All of a sudden he says it and they say, well, he's supposed to be a role model. It's like, no, the president of the United
To
States is
who?
not a role model for anybody. You want a spiritual advisor, you need to go to church or get yourself a counselor. The president of the United States is supposed to be about all business, not teaching American people how to live. He's supposed to be keeping the American economy on track and being that global leader that people can follow, And
Mm-hmm.
so people
Mm-hmm.
got a lot of hypocrisy and a lot of double standards. And that's on the Republican and Democrat side. I think I get
It
attacked
is.
more by Republicans than I do Democrats, at this point because, a lot of Republicans got that ideology that is so narrow-minded and they can't see beyond their own belief that they get told from someone else, and it's
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of ridiculous and from my perspective, but what can you do?
Mm-hmm. I recently saw a video with you. I believe you were on Newsmax, but you challenged, well, you said that you will pay for President Trump to come to the inner city. Now, is
Yeah.
that only California, or are you gonna pay? I'm in Chicago. Are you gonna pay for him to come here too? Cause
No, I can't afford all of those. I can't pay for him to come to South LA because I live out here. And let me tell you why. Throughout our
uh-huh.
entire campaign, it was so hard to get Republicans or conservatives to come to the inner city. They had so much talk. Oh, just tell them this. And I'm like, why don't you come down here and tell them?
Mm-hmm.
You come down here and tell them yourself and you see if it works. Because ever since I've been in politics, I've been telling them that their messaging for the Black, Latino, and Asian, urban America, all right? And urban America, I think it's just Black community. It's not, I don't want to go through every single race of people or ethnicity of people. But urban America, like your message is off, all right? People in
Right.
urban America not buying it. Don't matter you Candace Owens, don't matter if you Rob Smith, all these Black political talking faces who have never lived in urban America talking for urban America because they needed that voice. And now you have people who live here coming out saying like, no, your message is wrong. You need to go engage people in the inner cities and talk to them about things that they can identify with. Because in urban America, we don't care about international politics. We care about getting our
What's
bills
happening?
paid and getting that
Mm-hmm.
daycare paid for so we can go to work, getting some jobs back. And
Mm-hmm.
so my challenge was to start bringing Republicans to the inner cities, because they talk about me, they talk about the way we did things with our campaign, and we're extremely effective. We took our district from a D plus 54 to a D plus 24, which means we increased the amount of Republican voter registration. And that wasn't because of the RNC, the NRCC, none of these large Republican political bodies. They didn't support me. President Trump came out and endorsed me towards the end of the campaign, as well as his family and some other figures. But it was because of the work that my campaign put in. And mind you, we had Democrats working on our campaign. We had independents
Mm-hmm.
and Republicans, and it took a long time before white conservative actually came to the community, felt comfortable coming into the community. You know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so I wanted to get them out. I think if President Trump started going to inner cities, he would have won hands down because people in our communities they'll say, well, yeah, your talking points sound great, but you're never here, so I'm going to choose the people who are here 24/7 because they're here. I don't care what you're talking about. And I think that's the mindset that a lot of people in our community have towards the Republicans and conservatives who never come to the inner city.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you on that. Tell me, and I had one of my viewers literally say, I cannot wait to hear what Joe Collins is saying about this lawsuit against Maxine Waters.
Yeah,
Please
yeah.
tell us what is happening, what is going on. Not only are you running for the woman's position, but now you're suing her. Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about that. Like what happened?
Well, the lawsuit started back in August timeframe. Maxine started running advertisement saying I was dishonorably discharged from the military. Mind you, she's in Congress. She can go pull my DD 214 if she wanted to, but she
She said that
didn't.
you were dishonorably discharged from the military.
Yeah. And she said a
Okay.
lot of things, but that's the one thing that really upset me. And the reason why is because I'm a combat veteran. I fought in Iraq. I seen my friends die in
Right.
Iraq. I came back, had friends commit suicide. So who are you who sit in Congress who directs the military to tell a veteran that they were dishonorably discharged knowing that it was wrong? What happened was because she wasn't helping me get my benefits, I sued the military. And I sued because I thought I wasn't getting my benefits because I had a general and honorable conditions separation. So I'm struggling trying to figure out what the case may be. What it was the VA system was broken. After I filed my lawsuit, magically my benefits came through. I let the lawsuit drop. When Judge Anello, who was a judge in a federal case when I sued the military, found out that Maxine was running advertisement, he went back and actually corrected the record. But this was after Maxine. This is after we filed the lawsuit. Maxine said, "Well, I personally talked to the judge, and he told me this himself." And clearly, it was a lie because if it was true, the
Mm-hmm.
judge would have left the record. I never put my DD 214 on the record in a case because it wasn't necessary for an initial filing. So he went back and corrected the record. But whenever we were in court, the judge was a Democrat, and her and Maxine is a Democrat. So in order for her to keep her seat, she had to kick the case, and so she did kick the case. Now we're in appeals court, and we plan on winning in appeals. If not, we're going to win in Supreme Court, definitely. We sent Maxine letters saying stop saying it along with our DD 214 because she was absolutely wrong, but she didn't care. She ran more and more advertising because she felt like it was going to help her win, but I think it hurt her more than it helped her.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have more people who are veterans from the inner city start seeing what was happening. It was like, no, that's wrong. That's not right at all, especially to do it to a black man when your motto is I fight for everyone.
Right.
Um, so we're battling out in court with that.
Well,
But yeah,
Godspeed to you. You're going to win. I find it so very interesting. And I don't know how these politicians are able to literally just go on national television or whatever and lie. Like the mayor of Chicago, she
yeah,
literally went on national television when she was speaking to a Newsmax reporter, I believe, and literally said, no, she literally said that crime in Chicago, the numbers were going down. And anybody on earth knows that this is not correct. You know, there were, for all of the shootings that happened over the weekend, over the holiday weekend, or like last week, I have a connection to maybe two of them, you know, two or three of them. You understand what I'm saying? So the numbers are not going down. I just don't understand how these politicians are able to continue to lie to people and not be held accountable. You know, we want accountability from police officers for, you know, violence against, you know, gun violence, and as it should be. We want accountability from police officers. We want accountability from pastors. We want accountability from everyone except the people that are running this show, except from politicians. And I don't understand that. I don't get it at all. I
I
really
think one of
don't.
the biggest things, people find it so easy to get out and protest about things that they don't like, and they don't understand that protesting does absolutely nothing. It's not
It
going to
does.
change nothing. The politician will have to change it. And Malcolm X said it best. You're crying to the person to free you who created the things to keep you in bondage. So if you
Mm-hmm.
have a politician, that's why I hate hearing politicians complain. I hate hearing Maxine say, "I'm fighting for you, but." And it's like, and it's the same with all the politicians who've been in office for a long time who have failed to do anything of value for the people. They always have these complaints, complain about this, complain about that. And it's like, you're a victim when you're literally in a position to make change. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
how about you get off your lazy butt and start passing some laws if you feel like America is, this bad place? You have the ability to do it. That's why I got kicked out of Congressional Black Caucus back in 2019 because I said that very same thing. They were teaching people how to be
Mm.
activists. Oh, do this to the cops. Don't buy into this and don't let them do that. And they're breaking the law when they do this. And I stood up and I said, for the entire Congressional Black Caucus, you guys are telling people how to act towards cops. If you think it's a big problem, why don't you just pass laws? Pass laws or remove laws that are no longer effective. I think that would be more
Right.
effective than having people getting out here making an ass of themselves, not knowing the law, and getting killed because they want to get hostile with cops who deal with hostility on a regular basis. And a lot of times you can already see it. It shows you on TV. They're not going to prosecute cops. They're just not going to do it. So until you start passing some laws that are going to be effective, or that's going to improve the way police and civilians interact with each other, we're going to get the same exact thing. But when you keep pushing hatred all day, people take that hatred out on cops. And mind you, we still have the hatred going on in our own communities against our own brothers and sisters. And so it's like it's not even a positive effect that we have going on here.
Okay. Yep. I agree with you on that. A couple of more questions, and then I'm gonna let you go. I know you're super duper busy, but I had a friend who said, "Ask him this." Like when people found out that I was interviewing you, they got so excited, and so they said, "Well, ask him this." And so I have a friend whose background is not the best, but he is interested in going into politics. Like he has noticed, and on the Republican side as well, he has noticed that his alderman here in Chicago has been in office for years, and he sees no improvement in his neighborhood. The alderman's website has not been updated since like 2018. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
you know, and in Chicago, there's not one Republican alderman on the entire city council. And so he has just been playing these things over in his head and kind of wants to get involved, but he wants to know, like, what are the steps for someone whose background isn't the best, right? It's not, as Jill Scott would say, it's not squeaky clean, but someone who wants to make a difference. What advice can you give to someone like that? Young Black brother now he's, you know, as an adult, he's on top of his game, business owner, father, husband, you know, family guy, saved, sanctified, filled, all of that good stuff. But for someone who wants to get into politics, whose background might not be the best, what do you suggest for them? Like, how can they get involved?
I'll tell you two things. One, you can get your record sealed and I bring it up, but it's bad on the moral side. Two, embrace it and run with it. And, you know, especially, you know, if you're from urban America, I would absolutely embrace it and use it as a talking point to help everybody else, you know, feel encouraged. And I feel like your background is something that's going to stop you, because honestly, it's not. People worry about their background when it comes to getting a job, you know, but why get a job when you can start a business? It's easier to start a business, especially nowadays, than it is to get a job. And, you know, business doesn't care about your background. The IRS doesn't. Let me do a background check before I give you an EIN. When it comes to politics, you got to understand, people are going to talk about you anyway. No matter what you do, you could do good things, you can do bad things. People are going to make up stuff to talk about you. So my suggestion is just go out and get involved in politics, put your record on the table. That way you can control what people say about you by already having your record out there. You know, it's like a done. It's already out here, and we're going to use it to improve our community. And I'm going to use it to be a mentor to the young people who want to do the same thing that I'm doing right now, who come from the same background and have the same issues. So for my advice to him, you could do step A, you know, the blue pill. You could do that one, or you can embrace it, take the other pill, embrace it, and use it as, you know, something you can. Yep.
That was one of the things that one of the arguing points that I had when it came to this recent Kimberly Klacik, Candace Owens thing.
Oh Lord.
Like, I mean, I know we're not going to dive too far in it, but from my point of view, first of all, as a Black woman from the inner city who kind of grew up, you know, whatever, I understand where both of them were coming from. My thing is, I was just like, you know, I didn't feel any type of way about Kim, whatever her past was and whatever she had going on. I love a good come up story, right? So I felt like if you were in fact, that's what you were doing and that's what you were doing to survive, and now you're running for Congress or whatever you got going on, that's an awesome come up story. Tell your story, be transparent in that. But, and I'm going to say it, you don't have to, but I just kind of didn't like the way that Candace Owens presented it to the masses of the people. You know what I mean? Like,
she was wrong. She was wrong, like, hands down, that was wrong. Because
Yeah.
for one, Candace doesn't know anything about politics. She doesn't know anything about running a campaign. She made her fame off bootstrapping President Trump. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Before that, she had her website. She was a liberal, trashing, Republicans, conservatives, and everything. And
Really?
then yeah, she's a clout chaser. You can Google it. It shows up all over the place. And
Okay.
even stole Brexit from somebody else, and then claimed it as her own. That's why Kanye
Not
West backed up
Candace.
off. Yes, she
Not
did.
Candace.
Candace is, yeah, she's trash. She is. Candace makes a living off trash and black people. She makes all this money. It's what I don't like about these guys. Like the Candace Owens and these mainstream faces that want to talk for the black community who have no black experience. They make all this money talking about how Democrat policies destroy black communities, right?
Mm-hmm.
But every
Mm-hmm.
time a person is killed by a white person or killed by a cop, they're the first person to come out and try to dig into this man's background, or women, and justify them being killed by saying, well, they did this, they did that, they did that, they did that, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if you just made millions of dollars by saying Democrat policies destroy black communities, then these people who come out the black communities are not criminals. They're victims of the policies that you made money off of, which you said destroyed the black community. So how can you create an avenue to be able to help these people knowing their situation? And that's the problem that I have with them. They don't. They don't go to the inner cities. They don't have black city events in the inner cities. They make all this money and they pander to their white conservative base. You go to a black sit event, there are no black people there. It's not even in the inner city, which what people
Mm.
give them money to do. And so when you see a Candace attacked me. She tried to shut down my campaign last time because
Oh,
I called her a
really?
sellout. Yeah, she did. It didn't work because I want all the smoke. I'm 100% with it. I will drag you, but when you make your living trashing black people, just to save face for your platform, it makes you look trash, And when she came out against, I'll deal with it. I don't have a problem with it. When you come out against Kim Klacik, Angela Stanton King, and you got your
Yeah.
cronies coming out against us, and we're actually from the inner city saying that your talking points are not wrong, but they're only half truths, right? What you
Mm-hmm.
talk about how the Democratic Party does to our community is absolutely true, but what you say about the people who live there is absolutely false. And if
Right.
you think it's right, come to our communities and say it to people who actually live here and see how they're going to feel about it. I had
Mm-hmm.
a principal tell me, and I've donated money to high schools in South LA. I had a principal come to me and show me the video when she was talking about George Floyd, and she said, "Oh, is this how black Republicans feel about black people? Because I got kids in my schools that got criminal records that are struggling trying to make better grades, and they hear
Right.
stuff like this, and it makes them feel bad. It makes them hate the Republican Party, and then it revert back to the street stuff because they feel like, well, if I get killed, they're just gonna call me a criminal anyway." And so I
Right.
reached out to Candace. Had some people reached out to her. She doubled down, then tripled down on her. And I'm like, you know what? You're a sellout. You make yourself look like a sellout when you talk about black people after you just made all this money off black people. You're no better than all these other organizations that come around and they make money off black communities. Like the Asians in China, they make all the
Get the
videos, hip
nail.
hop
We get the.
videos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and they
Mm-hmm.
say that they get it from our hip hop culture. You're no different from them. You a grifter. You don't do anything for our communities. You don't do anything for our people except trash us. And even with the people who are doing things in our communities, you do absolutely nothing for them. You don't help us. You don't put us up on a pedestal. You don't bring us on your shows. And mind you, you don't have to, but you also are not going to get away with trashing us as if you're God's gift to black conservatism.
Mm-hmm.
So
Love
she
it.
was wrong. She was wrong.
Yeah.
Candace is my homegirl, and we work together on many projects. And I'm not going to let somebody who does absolutely nothing for anybody in our community trash somebody who was working hard
You
to
say
to
Candace
get
is your girl or Kim is your girl or both?
Kim. No,
Kim is your homegirl.
Candace is not my girl.
Okay.
Candace is not my homegirl at all. I don't rock with her. Never have. But you're not going to trash people who are actually doing work in our communities every single
Right.
day while you sit up on your pedestal and point the finger as if you live in a glass house.
Right. Right. I get it. I get it. Um, what what are some of your policies? Like, how is Joe Collins going to change the world after he wins this campaign? How is
Mm.
Joe Collins the third going to change the world?
That's that's a good question. I haven't
Mm-hmm.
thought about how I'm gonna change the world. I want to be a great influence for my community. We'll start with that. I want to improve the education system. We have a design where if I get into office, we're going to start rebuilding the schools in our community, putting more money into our schools, education, tech. getting trades and vocational training back into our schools. I want to improve the community. I don't want the hood to be considered the hood anymore. I'm 35. It's been the hood since I was a kid. I think it's time to make that transition into a better type of lifestyle. So I want to do infrastructure. I want to do development within the inner cities, but I also want to bring jobs so we don't have that major displacement from people not being able to afford to live through the rebuilding process. I think those things are absolutely important. I want to create more business owners, create more wealth generating ideas or avenues so people can be able to get involved if they want to. I want to make it so living in poverty is a choice that you have to struggle to make. You know? So I want to take care of my community first. And after we take care of my community, we take care of the communities, the inner cities across the United States. Then I think we could focus on international policy. But you know, there's no point in focus on international policies if, you know, people in my community can't even afford to eat.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, and one last question, then I'm gonna let you go. I just love you so much. But how can a person who does not live in your district or who does not live in Los Angeles or California, how can someone support your cause and help you in your campaign?
You can follow me on all social media platforms at jOE Collins3. And my website is joecollinsforcongress.com. You can go, you can donate, you can send us a letter. Sometimes I respond. I try to respond as much as I can, but we get thousands of emails a day. If you want to volunteer, you can volunteer remotely from your home. We love that. That's absolutely awesome. But
Okay.
joecollinsforcongress.com and all social media platforms, jOE Collins3.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm definitely going to get with you on that because I want to do some things from here because I believe in your mission. I believe in your campaign. I'm praying that you win, honestly. And I know majority of my viewers are praying that you win as well. So you guys, thank you all for tuning in. Is there anything, one last thing you want to say? One little inspirational something you want to give to the people, Joe, or a little campaign something before we go?
You know,
or is
what?
it just Joe Collins for Congress? That's it.
No, I like to say this. You know, they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results. Sometimes you got to switch it up. It's okay. So say it's okay to switch it up. If you don't like the decisions you make, keep making decisions. But to do the same thing constantly, to expect different results while you're struggling, is foolishness. You know. And I want everybody to stay blessed. You know, I'm a Christian. I believe in God. I like to indulge in the Bible on a regular basis. My favorite person in the Bible has to be Paul. And the reason why is
Yes.
because Paul reminds me of, you know, myself. He was Saul, he was a murderer, then he turned into Paul, became a king. He's wise beyond his years. And thank you for having me on your show. I really
Oh,
appreciate
thank you, Joe, for having for agreeing to come on my show. So,
it. Absolutely.
all right, guys, this is Joe Collins for Congress. He is Joe E. Collins on all social media and joecollinsforcongress.com to get in touch with him. It's been a pleasure, Mr. Collins, and the rest of you all have a great day. You all be nice to one another, be kind to one another. We are still in this quote pandemic, so check on your people, make sure everyone's okay. Tune in to Down the Rabbit Hole with KD every Friday at 7 p.m., but sometimes we'll do an impromptu interview during the week, like I just did for special guests. Okay? Thank you all. You all have a great and wonderful and blessed and prosperous day. Bye-bye.